Welcome to Reddit News. Like and subscribe or this will eat your cookies. Teachers who have had to clean out students' lockers. What's the worst, weirdest, or grossest thing you found in them? In primary school, the boy whose cubbyhole/locker was next to mine had a huge crush on the horse girl in my class. You know what I mean. Horse stickers, horse backpack, has a favorite horse, open parentheses, Clydesdale, close parentheses, etc. He chewed gum every day and he started working on a horse sculpture made entirely of gum in his locker. I watched him adding to it, and wow, horses are hard. He struggled the most making slender horse legs made of gum to hold up a horse, and I guess didn't think of popsicle sticks or pencils as a base. We were 6 or 7. He spent a few months on the sculpture and it became pretty big, but it didn't really look like a horse. It had huge legs and a weird droopy face. He gave it to her during class without an explanation and she screamed. My little sister is the horse girl. Can confirm, she would also scream. Many trained artists will tell you horses are hard to do. They're not the only ones who can tell you it's hard. I worked as a resident assistant in college. On the last day before Christmas break, my colleague and I were checking all the rooms to ensure they were empty before we locked the dorm. In one resident's empty room, sitting on the desk was a small plastic container that should have been transparent, but was fogged up from the inside. Even weirder, it looked like there was a shadow inside it, like something was moving. We opened the lid and, after waving away the pungent smell, found 4 tiny gerbils desperately clawing at the container's sides to get out. Their bedding was filthy, and they had no water. One of them was even licking the sweaty condensation off the sides, just to not die of thirst. It was late at night, and we had to go, so we took the gerbils to the campus police station. The gerbils were given some water, and the attending officer promised to get them proper help once things opened in the morning. When we confronted the resident about it after students returned in January, he said he didn't want them anymore, and figured that the janitors would come by to eventually throw them away. We disciplined him for violating the no pets policy, but he deserved so much worse than that. Student lockers are usually terrible, but I hate cleaning the boys' athletic locker room each year. So much rotten food and gum stuck all over the place. It's like the lockers just turned into these guys' personal trash can. Not related, but it reminds me of a story. Someone once found a way to turn off the lights in the boys' change room after gym class when we were changing. The lights went out. There were sudden screams and shouts. When they turned back on, one of my friends was in a trash can. No ill intent. They were childhood friends, but we all died laughing. Special education EA here. One of my students with Down syndrome refused to wear socks and underwear. Every day his mom would make sure he put them on, but the moment he got to school, he would take them off. He was very possessive of his locker and wouldn't let anyone see it. Every couple weeks, I would have to sneak into his locker and grab all his boxers and socks and hide them in a bag to give to his mom. Portal to Narnia. Open parentheses. Okay, not quite. Close parentheses. On my last day of high school, open parentheses, 20 years ago, close parentheses, they started to demo an older part of the school that had a thpeth. The older part was adjacent to the newer part, and in particular, the bank of lockers I was in directly backed onto it. We never thought or cared about it because the older part was small compared to all the newer built-up sections that we then used. Anyway, classes let out and we were milling around for a while. Finally, I went to collect my things and clean out my locker. When I opened it up, to my surprise, the back of the locker was loose, like it was now a door to something beyond it. My 2 adjacent locker mates were in the same boat, as that metal panel spanned all our lockers. We made sure no teacher was around. Then, without much effort, we kicked the panel into the space behind the locker. It opened to reveal an old classroom, almost perfectly preserved at the end of whatever school year had been its last use. There were old textbooks, posters, and tons of dust. We even found a notebook, open parentheses, nothing notable in it, close parentheses, that we were certain belonged to the dad of one of our friends, open parentheses. It would line up time-wise, close parentheses. Anyway, we spent probably 30 minutes exploring in there before one of us, open parentheses, don't know who, close parentheses, Reminded about the reason for the demolition, and we got out. It kinda reminded me of some scenes in the Silent Hill movie, but without the same fear level. What the thpethith? A naturally occurring material once used as a fire retardant in buildings, now banned in the majority of places for causing cancer and other nasty diseases. One of my friends in junior high put a dead crayfish in his locker right before winter break. We got back. The whole hallway smelled like seafood garbage scow had exploded. But why? Why not? Well, I can think of a lot of reasons why not. Obligatory, not a teacher. This person in my middle school would collect daddy long-legged spiders that she finds around campus and store them in her locker. She would also take one or two outside and let them crawl around her arm during math class. The math teacher politely told her to put the spiders away, but she refused, citing animal rights. I've always wondered where the kids who were like this from my high school are today. Jumping in with a barely related story that this has just brought back. I am old and was in junior high school when Dungeons & Dragons first became popular. I did most of the dungeon mastering and carried my notebook to school with me, so I could have something to do while I was ignoring the teacher. One day, I accidentally left it inside a desk in one of my classes. The teacher looked through it and was fairly horrified. I was called into the class after school, and the teacher, the principal, and a number of other people whose purpose I can now only guess were in there to ask me the meaning of the strange book. Somehow, I managed to convince them that it was for a game, and so avoided being taken to a psychiatric hospital or whatever the plan was. Edit! Apparently I did not make it clear that it was my own handwritten notebook, not any published D&D book. The teacher believed that all the monsters and traps described were all the products of my own imagination. My 5E handbook has a paper bag cover that says biology on it. Adapt, improvise, overcome. Amazing how some things haven't changed in 40 years. Well, now if they watch Stranger Things, they'll be even more horrified of you. For some time, I was doing drawings of Furbies as beetles, spiders, octopuses, or worms in my Spanish notebook, because it is big and we use it much less than the maths or any other. I am glad that the teacher didn't see it. I'm about the same age as Yule, and still play regularly. In 2002, traveling on business, I opened up the PHB on a plane to look through some old spell descriptions. Guy next to me must have been slyly reading it for a while, when he asked me what it was. I explained it was the rules for a game. He asked in a challenging voice why I needed to be on a plane if I could cast spells that let me fly. As a student, I left a half-eaten tuna sandwich in my locker after school. I realized it when I got home. I thought nothing of it because I could get it the next day and throw it out. Unfortunately, that night I was rushed to the hospital with appendicitis. Teachers, principal, staff, whoever opened my locker adjacent to the cafeteria to get my school books, open parentheses, so I could work while recovering at home, close parentheses, and they found the over tuna sandwich. Apparently, students were complaining about a bad smell on that side of the cafeteria, and the staff told my mom that they had never smelled anything worse once they opened my locker. Oops. I gotta get my tuna sandwich. Your appendix. No. Obligatory, not a teacher. But this one kid kept an entire watermelon in his locker at all times. Whole or cut up? Was it always the same watermelon, or did he eat it and then replace it with another watermelon? Asking the right questions. He would constantly have rotating watermelons and would cut them up when he wanted to eat them. How dare he? Also, the only reason it got confiscated was because he brought a knife to cut up the watermelon. Other than that, we have no rule saying he can't take an entire watermelon as his snack. But why? 'Cause he liked watermelon. Duh. Not a teacher, but at the end of every school year we have to clean out our lockers. And the corridor where my locker was always smelt like bad bread. So while I was getting my stuff out my locker, my friend opened his, open parentheses, right next to mine, close parentheses, and I saw the worst looking sandwich I ever saw. It was completely blue and almost made me be sick. I swear it was in there for months. Kid was growing his own strain of penicillin. Lol. Just trying to prepare for COVID. I'm not a teacher, But my cousin told me stories about his high school PE experience. He didn't ever wash his clothes for PE, and failed the class because he refused to take his clothes home and wash them. He left the clothes there for the school to clean at the end of the year. Edit. Grammar. That's pretty disgusting. I hope your cousin has healthier hygiene now. I hope so too. I really do. I cleaned at schools, and at the end of the year, this one kid had left a whole lunch in his locker from like the beginning of the year. The milk was spoiled. The apple was much. The sand, which was black and moldy. I just about quit right there. Edit. Sandwich. Wow, they fed those kids sand? I see why he didn't eat it. Lol. Didn't notice that typo. I just cleaned out my first graders' desks and cubbies since our last day pre-COVID shutdown on March 12th. I found an open and half-eaten PB&J Uncrustable. Do you know what that looks like? I also found bottles of water with so much backwash floating in it that they were now almost whitish gray on the inside. Kids are gross. Not a teacher, but me and a couple of my friends stuck a bag of pepperoni in one of their lockers, and we forget about it. It's still in the locker while we in lockdown. Lol. I left a banana peel in my locker a few weeks before lockdown. Can you give us an update on some future date? What a waste of pepperoni. I'd kill for one right now. Open parentheses. They are illegal in my country. Clothes parentheses. I didn't know North Korea allowed Reddit. In middle school, everyone was obsessed with these really nice, open parentheses, by middle school standards, close parentheses, pens. Must have been Pilot G2s. Those are great pens. The school had a huge problem with people having their pens stolen. They eventually got banned in large part because a kid got reported for stealing pens, and when the checked his locker, there was a freezer bag with something like 200 pens in it he had stolen over the course of the year. The normal black or blue version of the pen was around $1 and change, but people would buy special versions for like $5 sometimes. Someone did the math way back when, and the kid had like $400 worth of stolen pens hidden in his locker. I'm not a teacher. Open parentheses. I know, but give me a minute. I had to help clean it. Close parentheses. In elementary school, open parentheses, 4th grade, close parentheses.